Hello and welcome. So I am going to bring to you some more information around October. It's quite incredible really how much is coming in, and I have notes again in quite a variety of places. So there's information about the energies, there's information about the collective, and there's a little bit more information about New Zealand and around time and space, and about the little bit about the divine masculine. So I think I'm just going to bundle it all in here for a variety of reasons. One of them is feeling that we are very much on the edges of this shifting into the internet coming down, the power grid coming down, phone services, mainstream media, all of those things are on the edges of coming down in and out intermittently. I feel is my understanding. They're not all necessarily going to come down at once or for the same period of time, but we're definitely on the edges of that. So I'll bundle it in here and I'll do my best to make sense of it. But it really has been quite phenomenal, all the stuff that's come through. So I'm just going to start with this, which is what came through on Sunday. The emission of light in the center of our planet is accelerating. There is a pulsation effect and a quickening. On the surface, so in other words, those of us who are on the surface here of the earth, for us it may bring about greater feelings of compression and intensity, as we are in the experience of the rag being wrung out very tightly. We are in preparation to move again in the galaxy, where we will receive more photonic light, and Gaia says we will receive a barrage of it. So for some this may feel like a punishment in the body. It might be quite challenging in the body, a little bit achy, a bit painful, but you are urged to see this as a reflection that there's just more inner work to do, that it's hitting up against density that needs to be cleared out. So this is a message, a reflection to you that you've got some woundings to attend to, some healing that's required, some trauma that needs to be soothed, and whatever other emotional releases are coming up to be witnessed, to be observed, to be absolved and dissolved. And really a couple of tips for that is to perhaps state things out loud, to perhaps place your hand on the part of your body where you are feeling that, and just feel into that. Just kind of feel into what the energy might look like, might feel like, might sound like, all of the different sensory aspects of it, and just allow it to move through with the breath. Gaia says we may feel this visual that I'm being shown is as though the higher realms are watching. The wagons on the train tracks are screaming down the hill and around the corners, and at times two wheels have lifted off, and then we land back again with both sets of wheel on the track, and that's what the higher realms are watching. And again I am shown and I am reminded that this process that we are going through, this compression, this squeeze, this aspect of purification, is the same process of creating the gemstones in the earth, and that's us. That is humanity. We are being compressed to come into our purity and into our beautiful jewel-like light. And to remember that Gaia is both holding us as the nurturing mother and cheering us on from the sidelines. So Gaia shows me cascading waterfalls and the internal of the earth. They're running fully, clearly, beautifully. Where before they were just a little rivulet of water, they are now these full cascades of brilliant, clear, clean, sparkling water. And so in your heart space you may begin to feel or have sensations that are different to your previous experience that links into that. It might be that you feel this radiant light coming from the center of your heart space, similar to that of the center of the earth, So humanity coming into a new level of balance, and that is where we are. So those of us who are conscious, we are leading the way, the others will follow. So we are in preparation for coming into our new world, holding space with love in our hearts, awaiting the awakening of more of our brothers and sisters, and allowing them the process of unveiling themselves to themselves and unveiling their truth, attending to their wounds, expanding their abilities to see and perceive and to be able to witness the truth, to then begin the process of the dissolution of their own personally held matrix of beliefs, the pulling back their own veils, their own curtains. And they'll be moving through this process as we hold them in their own revealings, feeling compassionate and excited actually all at the same time, for it brings us the joy of anticipation of where we are and what we are becoming in our greater concentration of fifth dimensional frequency, this light-filled world that contains clarity and love and compassion, that holds warmth, and where all life is treasured. We're also going to be moving to a place where relationships take on a new form of reverence and higher communication through the heart and through the higher mind, where we each are reaching upwards and at the same time pulling higher aspects of self downwards. So we are getting ourselves into these higher versions and bringing greater aspects of our gifts, revealing, owning, claiming, and then tuning them, refining them, all of our clairs, our clairvoyance, our clairaudience, our clairsentience, our claircognizance, our telepathy, all of those things. And each of us will have different capacities and different strengths, and you'll find likely that the aspect of you that holds the greatest clarity and strength will expand and become more proficient first, and then the others will follow. So one of the values that I'm showing very clearly that occurs through this time, and I can only describe it as feeling like patience and presence mixed together. This is the energy of the wisdom keeper, the one who knows much and says little, but holds space for information to come forward. And this is done with great love and presence and compassion. No rush, no need to be right, or to be seen or heard nor understood, yet holding space so that the other may seek their own internal wisdom, information and compass. Can you feel that? Can you drop into the conjuring up of that feeling? Those who are highly awake, Gaia says you may still be feeling in the sense of there not being many of you or many of us, that many may be feeling as though they are on their own. And of course we know that that isn't true. But we are in a way on our own assisting others, and that as we do that, the energy of community builds. The bubbling noise of conversation, activity and industriousness, this working together, the buzz of working together, that energy comes and it builds very, very quickly. The other thing that I'm showing about this is the sense of shift around knowledge and wisdom, where it is so beautifully and easily and generously expressed and shared. These are well-held values, but for many newly awakened, they will be surprised because the knowledge has been not so generously expressed and freely shared in the past. So this will bring another sense of shift in values. This energy I'm showing is like the wise craftsman or woodsman. Let's call him senior or experienced. And he gives very generously of his time, his patience and his wisdom to the younger men. And they, I have to say, are avid, appreciative students who value the exchange of knowledge, skills and expertise, which as a teacher I would have called the inquiry approach, a teaching learning strategy where some information and resources are provided and are fostering and nurturing the climate of questioning and investigation and of exploration in the process. That is the process of that strategy, and that's how I perceive it. So Gaia says that people are going to become aware that their governments have used them as trade and collateral, and governments will be dismantled. Law will come back into the people's hands. There will be a surge, maybe some mayhem, maybe a little bit of violence and destruction, mostly arising from the men in our world who may see this as a vehicle for reclaiming their power. But really it will dissipate their anger very quickly. They will become more centered, productive and in their empowerment. And I have really for a long time I've wanted to, and I'm not going to have time to drop into it too much today, but you know, there's a part of me that has wanted to really speak to the process of the masculine and feminine in our world, and historically, in brief, you know, we've had a couple of thousand years of the women being in power, and a couple of thousand years of the men being in power, and now we are bringing that about through a balancing act, through this recognition of our own internal energy systems being both masculine and feminine, and bringing that into balance. So if we're in the female gender, we are holding more of those, when we're in balance we're holding more of those receptive, allowing, creative aspects of energy, and if we're in a masculine form then we're coming into holding more of the action, the problem solving, the protection, the movement, just very, very briefly. And then, you know, together we come into that balance and partnership. But it's much more complex than that. But I want to say that, you know, there's a part of me that really wants to encourage the women in our world to do ha'aponopono to the men in our world. That's this idea of the ha'aponopono is, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And to repeat that, because I want to apologise. And you know, each of us has been here on the earth in masculine form and feminine form. Each of us has transgressed in many different ways, but right now I just invite the women of the world to spend some time repeating that series of statements three times every day. Let us do that as a 10-day practice. And I want to apologise to the men for, in this 2,000-year cycle, and certainly in the last 100 years or less, you know, we emasculated our men, and that's terrible. It's horrific. I'm sorry, but now is this opportunity for each of us to be really in honour and reverence of the different aspects that we hold, and in recognition that when we come into our internal balance and then come into the partnership balance with those, we are incredibly powerful beings who can bring about the change that's required in our world. And many of us have come here to do that, to shift the paradigms. And so I just want to thank the men in our world who are stepping up and about to step up, and invite you to do that, to be reaching in, and there's this beautiful thing that came through that I'll get to in a moment, but I really just wanted to reference that at the moment, to thank you. So let me find my way back here. Yeah, that in many ways, collectively, the women have pierced the veil and shone the light and expanded the levels of our consciousness available on the planet. But we must also acknowledge that there are also many men who have done that, but now we're moving into the sort of greater collective of the masculine, who are, you know, coming into play their role now. And it's interesting that, you know, when Gaia first sort of spoke to me about this, it was the following day that I saw the construction workers in Melbourne, and I thought, yeah, they represent this energy of the, not the divine masculine, but of the masculine, the collective group of the masculine awakening with what Gaia called the roar of the lion and the power of Niagara. And so now the men can and will, rise in a more tangible and physical way, as we each collectively find our balance and release our outmoded paradigms of behaviour and of relating and communicating. And so together we will create our new earth, as over a short period of time our values and practices will shift. Now, all that we are experiencing now will create a catapulting effect to a demand for truth, to a time for inner reflection, both individually and collectively. And then will come the action of the change, which we're, continually going through, of course. Will be collaborative. There'll be this co-created dreaming up coupled with constructive planning, and then we'll be bringing in new technologies, new priorities and new opportunities. So the masculine, they are rising up in their empowerment, in their strength and in their courage. They will be unstoppable, and we will be encouraging them, as this is a pivotal point in their collective evolution. They will explode outwards and upwards and forwards from their hara. So this is the place from which the energy from the center builds and shifts us. So this is the lower dantian, if you want to look that up. So I'm just going to add in here some other bits about what else in October. So October, a stretch and a compression, all for a conditioned end for higher good, meaning it's the end result that determines both. We are and we will be moving through that illumined gateway on the 11th of November as a planet, and this outcome is assured. We will determine the results are met. It may be harsh for some to endure, but not the outcome. We are warming up our internal temperature. This assists the quickening of both release and vibration. The energy is radiating out, and it's our job to be a great conduit and to be grounding. So have some good practices around that, this idea of being the conduit between what is above and what is below, and being well connected into the earth. Use the Gaia breath. It's pinned on my Facebook page if you want to look for that. It's just a 2-step process. Time and space. So I want to talk to you about the shift in time and space that's coming in during this month. Space and time becomes the precept of the observer. And so the way in which we are viewing it, interacting with it and holding it has an impact on the way in which we perceive it, use it and interact with it. So it dissolves as one increases in vibration. One comes to an observation of time meeting the need of the viewer. So it can be this singular point in time that we zero on into, or it can be this expanded aspect of time and space. So it meets the need of and for the occasion and the perception of the occasion. The start, middle and end, each is held in suspension of perfect equilibrium and balance, and may be both expanded and contracted. It's a bit like working in the quantum. Well, it is working in the quantum. It becomes more related to the vibrational wave that is expressed from those in participation. It will be fun for humanity to play with this exploration. So for many of us, we'll be coming into remembering how we've used this in the past, and for others it will be new and exciting and interesting. And I certainly don't have my head around all of that. I have my head around the idea of placing my focus somewhere and being able to be there as though I have moved through time and space. So in a way I can kind of do this in the practical metaphysical way, but the languaging around all of it is what came when I asked Gaia to explain it to me a little bit more. So I hope that you found that useful and illuminating. And the only other thing is that just I did write some things about New Zealand. I wrote a little blog about New Zealand. I'll just add in a few things here. I have just had so much stuff going on in terms of things coming in. I've got books and stuff on because I've got a multi-screen set up here. So this I already wrote as a little blog on my website. I'll just move this over to here. Yep. So Gaia says that here it is in New Zealand, and then today I discovered that I actually had more notes on it. So I'll just tell you about it now. That it is that such contrast is held, so the light on the surface is equally matched in New Zealand by the darkness underneath. And as in all cases and places, there is balance and polarity. In many ways, the beauty of the landscape has held the people in suspension. And it is their time now to come out, to grow, to open their eyes and to see through the veils, and then to allow the land to be purged. The squeeze will be great here, as when cleared, the frequency of this land will be exceptionally high. And certainly I have seen, and other friends of mine who are psychic and clairvoyant, we have seen that we become the retreat for the world, the ashram for the world, and that many people travel here in the future to be connecting into this high frequency for refreshment, for recalibration, for being renewed with fresh energies. We in our world here in New Zealand, or Aotearoa, we call ourselves the land of first light, because in the light of the dawn it comes here first. We hit the day first, and so that is how we call ourselves. We call ourselves the land of first light. And that, yes, many of us have seen that there will be people from all around the world that travel here as pilgrims, to spend time here in refreshment and to gather new energies and frequencies, and then return to their own land to ground them in other places. Gaia said that here, that there's a bit, it's kind of a bit of a mockery going on, and that the gameplay is escalating to awaken those who are so deeply in, get this word, somnambulism. So you can look that up, but it's to do with deep kind of sleepwalking. That's what that word means. So she's saying that many people in New Zealand are deeply held in somnambulism, swayed by the beauty of their own innocence. They have worn their rose-coloured spectacles. So it brings me to tears, because honestly, I mean, I live here, but the people who live here are really, really beautiful, kind-hearted people. And, you know, it's great to know that they're going to begin to awaken now. And in many ways, I've felt that we might be on the end of it. We might be the sort of last group to awaken, and then it all ripples back the other way. Blinkers and blinders, Gaia says, and they must awaken to the sublimely ridiculous statements that are being given. And then she says we must hold one another well as the ground erupts energetically. And I was being shown this metaphor of the mud geysers spurting up from under the ground. Not that we have that. I mean, well, we already have that here in New Zealand anyway. That's a feature that we have, that geological aspect. However, this was a metaphor about the energies. So let me get back to that. Yeah, so the ground erupts energetically like the mud geysers as centuries of bloodletting and density is released to the surface for transmutation of all that is held in the land beneath the surface. Like the clogged veins in the human body, the land of New Zealand will be pristine in all ways once again. Like the shining jewels in the ocean, as the sleep is wiped from the baby's eyes. That's us. In many ways, the population of New Zealand is like that. So there are many light workers here doing their work and carrying their load to assist and clear this giant laundry load, a giant load of laundry where everything needs to be cleaned and cleared and purified, from the tops of the mountains to the veins beneath the land and the blood of Gaia. We may see some of our water, she said, releasing spurts of rusty brown, will take on an orangey colour like a rust, representing aspects of the purification of the blood of Gaia, being washed out like the menses, the end of a cycle. That we will also geographically rise, that more land will rise to the surface and our external perimeter will expand above the surface of the seas. And she says New Zealanders are like the naive children, and they're going to awaken now. We must hold space for them, for one another, for the huge shocks, huge waves of shock that are to come, and how spectacular this land will be when it's revealed. And the blankets are pulled back and come back to the pristineness. And you know, as she is giving this all to me, I can feel the energy of that, and it's really, I can really feel it. It's amazing. It's a real wow. And that's where we here are headed. We're headed to that exquisite, crystalline, pristine, high frequency purity of energy in our land, in our whenua, and in our bodies. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, and I just wanted to get this out because, you know, I was reminded we are on the edges of this darkness of some description. So, you know, if you have not got organised, and I've been saying this since the beginning of last year, to get supplies in, because we would come to this place where there's a shortage and we might have outages. And I want to remind you, make sure that you get some food for your animals if you haven't taken that into consideration. But yeah, get some backup water, make sure you've got food, make sure you've got ways of having some light in the dark, so some candles and torches and just some basic supplies. And yeah, well, I of course I will be back, but you know, who knows what's going to happen in terms of all of our connections in this next little while. But honestly, it's exciting, and you know, we are going. It's, you know, I guess it's the storm before the arrival. It's the dark clouds that we have to move through to see the dawn of the new day. But we really are in the witnessing of the dissolution of the old and in the co-creation of the new. And we do that on all levels. We do that from the absolute microcosm of ourselves right through to the planet, and we are each the representation of the other, and we are well held and well loved by Gaia. So rest back, you know, let go of what is no longer required. Do some self-examination of you know, what's shifted for you during this time, what has become more important and what has become less important. One of the things I said to someone in my family to do, because their children were really feeling the energy of this, was to create a dream board, to create some images, to collect some pictures of things that they'd like to do and places they'd like to visit when we've moved through this, because we must not give up hope, and we must know that there is a future here. This is not the demise of life in general, it's the demise of life as we have known it, and it's a great shift into new light and new ways of being with self and with one another, a massive change in values. And a lot of people might be feeling their bodies going, you know, having this sensory experience of grieving, as at the moment our bodies are feeling this shift, because it's like our roots are being pulled up here from this kind of dimensional enmeshment and entrenchment, so that we can be lightly moving into this new glorious love-filled crystalline light, where we will have access to building new ways of being with one another and new ways of operating in our world. So much love from me to you, and I will see you again soon.